In this video I'm going to show you how to work with the fuel tables and how some of the speed density fuel maps work, because they're a little different than your traditional Nissan fuel table and fuel map. The first thing you'll notice is obviously you'll have a full 0 to 255 scale for your fuel map, and it's not dependent on closed loop anymore. You don't have values over 128 being in closed loop and under 128 being open loop. That's all defined in the closed loop section now. This gives you a lot more resolution on the map, and this is absolutely necessary for any speed density conversion. First thing you'll see, obviously, the tables. It'll tell you your load scale on the upper left hand corner. It's going to tell you right now I have it in inches mercury and psi as my load scale, and you can see it switches over right here. This is where we start getting into positive pressure. It stops being a negative value for a vacuum. We have our RPM scale on the side. You can edit these scales just simply by clicking on them and entering the number. If you go higher than the value to the right, it will actually go match the number. That way your scales actually can never be off, or they can't be non-increasing. They're always fairly linear. They're not going to be exactly linear, but they can't overlap. The next thing you'll see, if you right-click on this screen, if you right-click on the screen, you can see all the values, or all the selections that you could do to change the fuel value. You can increase, decrease, and then selection adjustment opens Control J. Now some of that's mostly stuff that was in the old version, but here are a bunch of the new things. This, you have import from TCD. This allows you to import the fuel table, the whole thing, including load scales and RPM scales, from a different TCD. All you select that and then select the TCD you want to import from, and it'll pull in all the info. Copy map from will literally just copy the actual table values from another one of the maps that you already have open in your current TCD. And the same for copy RPM scales and copy load scales. This allows you to easily pull off a load scale from a map that you're already using into a new map that you might be building. And that makes it easy to do that. The next selection is view graph. You can view it in 2D or 3D. That's completely up to you on what you'd like to use. Now, the next things are specific to the speed density maps. We have fuel units. Here you're seeing the raw units, which is the 0 to 255 value for the table value. You also have the option of viewing in millisecond, which you can select millisecond, and it changes all of the values in the table to millisecond values. Some people like to see that. That's fine. It gives you the option to see it. I'll switch it back here to raw. The next thing we have here is something called Optimize SD Fuel Maps. What this does, basically, if you run out of resolution up top, say like we're tuning up here at 30 psi, we'll select all of it and we'll add 20% to it. Okay, you'll see these upper values change, and the highest they get is 255. If I click on it and try to go up or increase the selection at all, you can see it just stays there, and that means we're out of resolution. What we can do is, it's a little easier to see it in a millisecond view. What we can do is change, basically optimize the fuel map. If you look here, you have 16.13 milliseconds, and if you look around the table, you can see the roundabout numbers there. If we want to optimize this map, what that does, it's going to knock down the fuel table values to 200 to being the maximum value, and then it's going to change what's called the SD unit factor, and you'll see right now it's 127. What this does, it has a weight for how much, basically the higher the number, the more weight per unit or per value in the table is going to have effect on the actual fueling. So if you see that right now it's 127, we'll go back in here and we will optimize SD fuel maps, Okay, this optimization will be done to all speed density maps. You can't just edit one by itself, it will do all of them when you do this. So hit yes, and you see it changed it very slightly. It went to 16.12, but it didn't change it very much, very little. And if we go back in here, you see the SD factor went from 127 to 162. And if we go back to our raw view, you'll see that it scaled all the values down, and it also scaled that top value down to 200. Now this gives you more room that you can actually go through and add back up to 255. And that just gives you more room, say if you run out of the table value and need more room in the map. It makes it very simple. It literally, you can do this with the car running, and it will completely rescale the map, and it won't change anything with your low end fueling or anything. It'll basically stay the same, but it will just give you more resolution in the map. Some other things with the fuel table and the fuel maps, or the fuel items, we'll just go in here real quick. One of the things we added in this for speed density is called boost comp. And what this is, it's basically a compensation that's applied to after your fueling, or after the initial table value fueling. And you can see that what it does, there's a value of 1 means no change, and a value above 1 means a change to the fueling per boost. So right here you can see up to 18 or 19 pounds we don't have any change. That means it's going off the fuel table. And if you look, you can see the value steadily increasing to about 18, 19 pounds, and then they stay the same up here. And the reason for that is because we're using the boost fuel comp table to add the additional fueling needed for the higher pressure. And this allows us to maintain more resolution on the low end of the fuel map while still adding the needed fuel up top. In the fuel map by actually using what's called boost comp, and that's how you dial that in. Generally, what I do with this is I'll tune the wastegate pressure, or maybe a couple pounds above wastegate pressure. Say if I'm going to 20 pounds, I'll tune the car to 12 or 14 pounds on, just on the fuel map alone. And then after that, all the tables above that I will make very similar to what I just tuned to at the table. So if I tune to 16 pounds, all the values above 16 pounds, I would make the 16-pound map just like this. I would just go through and copy paste, and that's going to build basically your fuel curve for your higher boost levels. And then what you can do is go in and actually give it extra fueling in the boost comp table. So say since we started at 16 pounds, then the next spot, or the next available column on the boost fuel comp table is 18.9. What I can do is put 1.2 here, and 1.6 here, and 2.0 there. And what that'll do, that's going to apply 20% trim, and then a 60% trim, and then basically 100% trim over the fueling that we have in the table. And that just allows you to maintain resolution. And that's one of the new things with the SA version, and tuning with speed density. It's one of those tricky things that you can do to maintain resolution on the low end and still get the fueling you need on the top end. And I'll just go over a couple more little things with fuel trims here. Of course, you have with the SD factor, you also have a MAF factor. So when using a MAF sensor, you have the exact same type of unit factor, but they're separate between speed density and MAF. So if you need to increase resolution, you can also adjust the MAF factor manually. And here we actually have the injector battery offset table. This is just like your latency in the old RT version, but this gives you an actual table so you can fill it in. So whenever your injectors come with the injector battery offset scaling on a piece of paper, you can actually fill in those numbers right here. It just makes it a little easier. And we'll go into cranking here real quick. You have your cranking injector pulse width. This is millisecond per ECT, and you can change these values if you're having any issues starting. With different injector sizes, you're more than likely going to have to change this table. This is going to be kind of a trial and error to get it just right. Now some of the other things we have is individual cylinder trims, and we have this by RPM. So this is a factor, 1 being no change, and below 1 is a percentage change. So say 97 would be minus 3%, and that cylinder at 1600. And you can do this by RPM, and that makes it kind of nice. So here's just a quick, brief overview of the speed density tables and how to tune them, and some of the things that affect the fueling that you're going to have to, work around in the new SA. It gives you a lot of flexibility. Once you get the hang of it, it makes, tuning, boosted cars on speed density, pretty simple and pretty painless. And one nice thing is you can take maps out of, one car that you tuned and plop it, right into another, pretty easily. Even if it's a SR20 DET, going to a, an SR20 DE with a turbo, you can take a map off like an S13 rear-wheel drive and throw it on that just by copying the tables. Obviously you can't start with a SR20 DET base calibration in an SR20 DE ECU. That won't work. But it does allow you to at least import certain parameters out of a table that you might want to use. And also, real quick, a lot of people have asked me about this. If you right-click on any table in this, you can go directly to the help section, and this will bring up the help section for whatever you just clicked on. So say right there we just clicked on fuel table. We can also do, say fuel trim. We'll go to battery offset. We'll right-click on that and go to help, and it will bring up the battery offset. And that's the easiest way. If you have any questions about what anything does in software, just right-click, go to the help, and that'll get you at least on the way.